Hey guys, what's up? HellaBass here, and this week, Neely, Henry, Bassmaster Elite Series picks coming up. But let's talk about Lake Fork first. Wow, what an amazing event. Lee Livesey, 112 pounds, 5 ounces. He finally got that big win on his home local lake. That's got to be a huge relief for him and an awesome win. An event that was largely dominated by swim baits, top waters, 2 bags over 100 pounds, lots of huge fish. Not quite a double digit, a few 8-pounders, a few 9-pounders, but man, what an amazing event. The best roster from Lake Fork was Lee Livesey, Brandon Card, Clifford Perch, Quentin Capo, and Chris Zaldane. So congrats to those guys. Nobody got the perfect roster this week. In our group, beat HellaBass, Randy 77, G Apple, 1,331 points. Nice event. Congratulations. Your prize from Omnia Fishing is on its way, buddy. Don't worry, if you guys didn't win, you can use the code HellaBass Spring 15 down below. If the link changes, it'll be down in the description below. But 15% off on anything Omnia Fishing carries. Feel free to check it out. They have lots of great bass tackle, fast shipping, worth checking it out. Also, congrats to Jay Baird leading our group at the halfway point. 5 events in, 5 to go. Can you hold on? Bow Fishing is right on your tail. Drain the Lake group winner for this week, Fish Bully. Sorry I don't have any prizes, but I want to shout you out and give you kudos. If I do get some prizes, we'll come back and hook you up later. But it's noted, you're a winner. You did awesome. Congrats being the best first Drain the Lake. Before we get into the picks, let's talk about Neely Henry. I think this is going to be a great event. I think there's going to be a ton of fish caught. Neely Henry's on the Coosa River in Alabama. Coosa River spots are the biggest, meanest, fattest, hardest hitting, hardest fighting spots that you're ever going to see. I fished Logan Martin. It was pretty incredible how hard they hit a jerkbait. They act more like largemouth than regular spots, so you're going to see them a little shallower, going to see them more in the current, see people using heavier line, heavier tactics to catch these spots, and they're going to catch some largemouth too. I expect a mixed bag. I think the people that win this tournament will have some big old heads and some big old spots and a nice mix. I think you're going to see fish caught in the current, see fish caught shallow, offshore, up in the bank grass. I think you'll see guys catching them on moving baits like swim jigs, spinner baits, buzz baits, horny toads, flipping. There'll be all kinds of stuff. I think this is going to be a power fisherman's dream this week, and there'll be probably a tail end of the spawn. You're going to have a shad spawn. There's going to be a whole lot going on, and I think guys in general will be able to catch them the way they want to catch them. Either way, I'm excited to watch this event coming up. Now let's get into those picks. Quick look at Lake Fork before we move on to those Neely Henry picks. Actually pretty happy this week. Scored over 1,100 points. Finally had a good week. Wasn't great, but much better than I had been doing. So we jumped up from like 69% up to 78%. Had a good roster. Almost everybody made the day 3 cut. Jamie Hartman was 1 spot out, and definitely had some guys in contention on the final day. What a tournament. Time to put that one behind us, and let's jump into the Neely Henry picks. All right, as normal, Bucket E. We're going to work our way to Bucket A. Let's dig in. To me, obviously the guys in Bucket E are not having a great year. Couple guys that maybe look, I think Kelly J could do all right here. He is from Alabama, but I think Bill Weidler is a much better pick. He's from the Neely Henry area. He lives about 90 minutes away. He loves to throw a swim jig. I expect him to have a good tournament. He should be able to be like beating that bank grass and those current points with a swim jig like he likes to do and come up with a really solid bag. So if you can just get a day 3 cut out of your Bucket E angler, you're in good shape. If you're looking for something a little off the wall, maybe something sentimental, I really think a spinnerbait might play this week. So maybe Rick Clunn. This is maybe a week where you could actually use him and get some good points. I know he hasn't been great. His attitude on stage has been a little off-putting from an observer. But maybe if you're a big Clunn fan and you want to put him on your roster, maybe try it this week. That's kind of my nostalgia dark horse pick this week. Moving on to Bucket D, Justin Atkins is getting a ton of fantasy owner percentage. But I don't think he's fished Neely Henry a whole lot. He's more of a TVA guy. He's more of a Pickwick, Gunnersville, Wheeler. That's more his bread and butter when it comes to Alabama. So I'm going a little offbeat here, trying to go with a little value pick. I think Kenta Kimura could be a good pick. He fished a top 5 in the Open last October on Neely Henry. Now this is obviously a spring bite versus a fall bite, but somebody that had some experience recently, did all right, fished shallow. I think Neely Henry fishes shallow most of the time, being a river system. He fished shallow in the fall, should be shallow in the spring. I think he'll do all right. So if you're looking for somebody a little obscure, go with Kenta Kimura. Me, I'm going to go with Jake Whitaker. He is not having a great season. He's a little below where he usually is, but I think he loves to finesse. He likes to throw small swim baits. He likes to throw a wacky worm, loves to throw the spinning rod. I think that will work well this week to get good, safe points. So that's all I'm looking for out of Bucket D. So I'm playing it safe, going Jake Whitaker. He should have a decent tournament. I think he'll be comfortable. He's used to fishing spots. He's from the Carolinas. So with the mix of spots and largemouth, I think he's going to do okay. There's a lot. I think there's a fair amount of docks on Neely Henry, so I expect him to have a pretty decent tournament. Before we get into Bucket C, don't forget to stick around to the end because we are going to talk Drain the Lake at the end, and we're going to go over those picks as well. Bucket C, Scott Canterbury is getting the overwhelming. He's almost up to 50% ownership at this time, and that's probably fair because he's actually a very good angler. Very good value in Bucket C. He's coming off a pretty good tournament on Lake Fork. He is from Alabama. He has fished tournaments on Neely Henry. It should fit his strength. He likes to throw buzzbaits, jigs, things like that. Those things should play really well this weekend. There is Bankgrass. There is Current. Maybe Brian Schmidt this week. He could be a good pick. He usually does really well on rivers where there's grass. Now, this is a little different kind of grass, so not sure how that worked out, but he's something to definitely look at. But me, Luke Palmer has been doing really well for me, and I've been talking about him, and I've been telling you he's been super consistent outside of a few bad events like St. John and Chickamauga, which were cold water events. But I think, that spinnerbait, that power fishing, that's going to serve him well. I think he's going to find that this fishes a little bit like some of the rivers in Oklahoma this week, and I think Luke Palmer will be really strong. At only about 3% ownership, I really like Luke this week, and I think he'll have a really big tournament. Bucket B, there are a couple of huge Alabama names in Steve Kennedy and Gerald Swindle hogging all the percentage, and probably makes sense. They're both really good shallow water anglers. They're both familiar with the water. They're both from Alabama. I think this time of year sets up for what they like to do. I can really see Steve Kennedy throwing that big, giant white swim jig and catching the fire out of him, or on a horny toad. And Gerald Swindle, he's very good at adapting shallow water. I expect him to have a good tournament. But Wes Logan, sneaky, super local hammer, veteran. He's fished tons of BFL, single-day team tournaments on Neely Henry, and he's a check cashing machine, and he's got 2 BFL wins, I think. So my money at 8% is definitely on Wes Logan. There's a ton of really good anglers, a lot of guys to look at in this bucket, and we'll talk about some of those in Drain the Lake. Lastly, Bucket A. Everybody that's in Bucket A is having a good season, and they have the potential to win this tournament for sure. I really wanted to pick my boy Kyle Welcher this week. I think it'll set up for him. I think he can catch him on a frog. I think he can catch him on a swim jig. He likes Current. I think this is going to set up for him really well. I don't know that he's fished Neely Henry a lot, but I think it's a good matchup for him, and he won't be too far from home. John Cox could be another good one. He won on Alabama on Smith Lake earlier this year. I'm not sure how close these are. They're a little bit different style spot fisheries, but this still should be right in his wheelhouse. But ultimately, I'm going Josh Stracner. He's from the area, that area, Alabama. He's done fairly well in tournaments, BFLs, other team tournaments, and things like that on Neely Henry. I had him on the stream a while ago. If you want to go back and see what he has to say about Neely Henry, I'll put a link in the description below and in the cards, and you can see what Josh said about his experience on Neely Henry. But he's my Bucket A pick. So I've got a pretty low percentage ownership, not a ton of favorites, and we'll see how it goes this week. Hopefully it boosts me back up into the 80s and we can get back on track this season. Now let's talk Drain the Lake. All right, so you can see the Drain the Lake roster here. Quickly, you can see they eliminate down at the bottom all the rosters you already used. So those are the people I used up at Lake Fork, and now my roster gets a little smaller for Neely Henry in every event here going forward. But here's my rundown. Scott Canterbury, I almost picked him for the regular fantasy team. I think this is a good matchup. It was either picking him here or on Gunnersville. Hackney, I think he's going to find this very familiar feeling. Rivers, he's a strong fisherman. Swim jigs, things like that. I expect Hackney to be good. He would have been a good pick maybe on Fork, but I saved him for this week. So this is the one time I'm going to use Hackney. Justin Hamner, Alabama guy. It was either here or Gunnersville. I put him here. Steve Kennedy, like I said before, I think this is going to be one of his strongest events of the year. Wes Logan, we already talked about him. You know why I'm picking him. Bill Lowen, I wasn't sure where to use him. He's having a good season. Seemed like a river event. I think he'll do okay. He loves to throw his signature swim jig. I think that's going to play. You're seeing a theme. I think swim jigs, spinner baits, buzz baits, things like that are going to be strong for Neely Henry. Use that train of thought when you're picking your rosters. Josh Stracner, hometown guy. And then finally, Bill Weidler, who is my Bucket E pick. So there's about half the guys that I picked for regular fantasy fishing and half the guys that I didn't, that were mentioned. They're going to be in my Drain the Lake roster. There's the fantasy picks this week. If you're tired of not getting your rosters in on time for fantasy fishing, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification button right there, and you won't miss getting your roster in next time. And if you want to continue to catch more big bass and suck less, make sure you watch one of these videos coming up right here.